Hello and welcome to another episode of Ossi Comments On. This time, entirely new experience with Iceland versus Britain, the Cod Wars by History House Productions. A relatively small channel, which I saw pretty much every video of since I discovered it, and they're pretty funny, pretty accurate in most cases. They cover a lot of stuff that the huge channels usually don't cover, like for example the Cod Wars, which is the only video of them I didn't saw yet because I wanted to make a pure reaction video on it. And yeah, so let's just, of course, the short introduction. My name is Ossi. I'm 31 years old, born in East Germany, but raised and now living in Hamburg, Germany. I am a former video game journalist and a former history student without degree. So I'm not an expert, and I'm just very interested in gathering knowledge, which also means I will make mistakes. And if I do, then you find additional information, clarification, and of course corrections in the info text box right there. And the link to the original video will be in the description. Go ahead, click on it, leave them a like and a subscribe. They're a really good channel. Bit of a mix between Oversimplified and Sam O'Nella, I would say. And let's just start the video, and when we're finished, then you have plenty of other videos you can watch on my channel, so make sure to check them out. But without further ado, let's start.
Are you sure about that?
Rule Britannia, yeah. So yeah, Great Britain for most of the time did not have that good and big of a naval fleet, and they were just gradually pimping it up. And I think Rule Britannia was first used during the Napoleonic Wars with their Admiral Nelson, I think it was, when he defeated French ships, and from that on Great Britain was destined to rule the waves and have the greatest and biggest naval fleet. And it's something they're very proud of. So proud, in fact, that it was one of the reasons why the First World War started, because Germany was building a navy which was not as big as the British Navy, but if they would have continued pimping up, the goal would have been to have a naval fleet that was as big as the British Navy, which then would mean that Great Britain wouldn't rule the waves anymore. And yeah, but as we will now see, a big navy, a great navy can't do everything.
Are you sure about that?
It's May of 1952, and Iceland just increased its exclusive fishing grounds from 3 to 4 nautical miles, meaning that no one else is allowed to fish within that zone, only Iceland. Now, at this point, you're probably thinking, Connor, it's just some stinky fish, why would anyone even care? And to that I say,
have you ever tried fish and chips?
And it just so happened that the British had, in fact, tried fish and chips. And a very large sector of their economy was now dependent on it. See where the problem might pop up. Britain was so unhappy.
Yeah, so you have to remember, every country that has access to the sea has exclusive rights to actually use a part of the sea. They have jurisdiction to a certain degree, and they have exclusive economic rights, which means only they can fish there, only they can. So if you find oil there, then only they are allowed to get it out, and so on and so on and so on. It also means that every other nation's ships that you find within your exclusion zone could be at least arrested or even at some times be attacked. And whereas in the United Nations there is in the nations law, it is now agreed that every country has a certain amount of miles or kilometers around them as exclusive zone. At that point, that wasn't so much written in stone. So what Iceland did was to extend from 3 nautical miles to 4 nautical miles, which is a very, very minor change, but you have to remember that the fishing grounds around Iceland are very, very, very huge, and the fish amounts there are very, very huge, at least at that point. And every mile more that Iceland has as exclusion zone would mean that others couldn't ship there. And Iceland is pretty close, not that close, to Great Britain and to the fishing grounds that the British fishing ships would go to. And they have none of it.
Darn it. See where the problem might pop up. Britain was so unhappy about this infringement on their fishing rights, in fact, that they just straight up banned Iceland from exporting fish to Britain. This was kind of a big deal, because Britain was the biggest buyer of Icelandic fish, and if the ban continued, the Icelandic economy would be devastated.
But they found other who would buy their fish, because around that time it was made even more possible to keep fish fresh for a longer amount of time. So the Icelanders were now able to ship their fish to South America, to Scandinavia, to America. And I think the US and Brazil became their biggest trading partners at that time.
Fish, and if the ban continued, the Icelandic economy would be devastated. Luckily for Iceland, the Cold War was going on at the time, and the Soviet Union started buying a bunch of fish in order to increase their influence on the strategic island. America saw this and got scared that they would lose their airbase in Keflavik, so they started buying a bunch of fish too, and even convinced Italy and Spain to join in. After a few years of this, Britain finally gave up and just let Iceland have the extra mile. Thus ended the first confrontation between the two nations, which in fact turned out to just be the prequel to the most dramatic and impactful conflict of the last millennia.
The Cod Wars.
Hey guys, this expanded fishing zone around Iceland has negatively affected business, but it's nothing that we can't get through together.
Yeah. So when they expanded it to 4 miles, it was meh. Okay. We take it, I guess. But then Iceland is a tiny nation. It has not that much inhabitants, but they have a huge fishing grounds around them. But when fish is your only industry, then you fish and you fish and you fish and you fish and then no fish is left. So because the 4 miles zone around Iceland was pretty much fishless at that point, they had to expand it even further, and then they just tripled the size, which means that now there are even less fishing grounds for Great Britain, which is not a great thing. And the thought process at Great Britain must have been like, yeah, but if they keep expanding their grounds, then at some point they would expand it so much that they would reach the British Isles. So we have to stop them now or never. Yeah.
Negatively affected business, but it's nothing that we can't get through together. Britain was now royally ticked. Get it? 'Cause they have a monarchy? Anywho, this new fishing zone didn't really butter Britain's biscuit, so they told Iceland that they were gonna fish inside of it anyway. And when Iceland was like, "Ekki gerafav," Britain told them to suck it and sent in warships to protect their fishing boats. Cue the First Cod War.
We have to remember at that point, Iceland does not have any army or navy or, in fact, anything armed what can be described as some kind of military. All they have is their coast guard, and which is what they will send out in their exclusion zone to actually prevent the British from fishing there, which then leads to the British sending their warships and trying to intimidate Iceland there.
And sent in warships to protect their fishing boats. Cue the First Cod War. This military deployment upset the people of Iceland, who quickly staged a protest outside of the British embassy in Reykjavik. This protest upset the British ambassador, who responded by playing bagpipe music loud enough to drown out their complaints. True story. The Icelandic Coast Guard responded by deploying a grand total of 6 patrol boats to face off against the 48 British warships. The two sides clashed on and off, and shots were exchanged on multiple occasions. After a bit of this shenanigans, Iceland finally pulled its trump card and threatened to leave NATO and kick all their ships and planes out, and we all know how much good old Uncle Sam loves his military bases, so Britain was soon forced to withdraw its navy and accept Iceland's new fishing grounds.
Yeah. Iceland has a very, very strong ally in the US because Iceland is more or less the last foreign stand against the Soviets in the Cold War, because if they have to pass Iceland if they want to get to America, and they even have to, if they have rockets that can go all the distance from Russia to the US or from Scandinavia to the US, it would have, then Iceland is where they can repel that at last, the last chance to repel that before it would reach the American soil. It is a very strategic position, especially in the Cold War, and so when Iceland would leave the NATO and would close the military base of the US there and their airfield there, which they need to defend the Atlantic if war would break out, that would be pretty bad for the Americans. So they then went on to go to the British and just tell them, let them have their 12 miles. Period. Or you will have to face us, more or less.
So Britain was soon forced to withdraw its navy and accept Iceland's new fishing grounds. Okay, my dudes, it's been over 10 years since the last problem with Iceland, so I think it's safe to say that we can just move.
Yeah. Again, too much fishing. The fishing industry in Iceland went downhill fast again, and there were pretty much no fish left in the 12-mile exclusion zone. So they just said to themselves, let's quadruple the size, a few miles extra on top of that, and now we have 50 miles, and they hoped that that would mean they can fish again and can put the required amount of fish out of the Atlantic Ocean. But spoiler alert, it won't work. And this time it won't work, not even for 10 years or something. I think the next year they will extend it again. And the second Cod War, which breaks out now, will see the first and only casualty during the whole wars, which was a machiner who worked in the ship of the Icelandic, I think, who was drowned, I think, because two ships collided, because they would ram each other frequently, and at that point he was trying to fix a leak that was caused by such a collision, and then a wave came and pushed suddenly a huge amount of water into the ship, and because he was trying to fix it, he had some electronic device in his hand, and then died by not by drowning, by electrocution. So
problem with Iceland, so I think it's safe to say that we can just move. Yet again, Iceland had increased its fishing zone and demanded that everyone else get out. Once the expansion went into effect though, a bunch of British ships were still hanging out and catching fish. Iceland couldn't stand this, so they sent in their coast guard armed with their new secret weapon.
The net cutter.
The net cutter is pretty much a big sharp hook that snags onto the line of a fishing net and cuts it off, thus rendering the fishing boat fishless. Here's how the first trial went down. Ship spotted, sir. Alright, this ought to be good. Greetings, this is the ICGV... how do you pronounce her name again? Oh, right. This is the Ega, spelled with 6 J's and a Q. Please identify yourself. No. Okay, well, in that case, I order you to follow us back to port. Wait, what's that coming through the radio? I swear, I literally did not make any of that up.
I will look that up if that is really true. I haven't heard of that, but I will look it up and I will put it in the info text box. And Rule Britannia.
I swear, I literally did not make any of that up. The IU was pretty grouchy at this point, so they deployed their net cutter and went in to disrupt the trawler. But when they got in close, the British crewmen started throwing garbage, coal, ropes, and a fire axe at the Icelandic vessel. In the ensuing garble that came through the radio, the IU was able to identify the British ship as the Peter Scott. All that built up suspense and we get a stupid name like that. In response, the British Navy was deployed again and even managed to accidentally kill an Icelandic sailor, but it wasn't long before Iceland just threatened to withdraw from NATO again and Britain was forced to back down. The Second Cod War ended in another Icelandic victory.
Once again, they went to the US, they say, help us or we will leave NATO. The US has only the option to negotiate with the Britons and tell them to just accept the new zone, or they would have to defend their military base at that point and deploy their own fleet. Because once again, Iceland does not have a fleet. They only have their coast guards, which more or less are civilians. So even if there are warships and they are at war, technically, the British can't just attack the Coast Guard ships, because no.
To back down, the Second Cod War ended in another Icelandic victory. Okay.
Yeah. Now they quadrupled again because the fishing grounds, when they extended to 50 miles, they found that the fishing grounds still were not very popular. So it had not the effect they wanted to on the economy, on the amounts of fish they were getting out. So they had to expand it once more, like a year later or 2 years later. Yeah, which was the last time, because, I think we will learn now.
Another Icelandic victory. Okay. The Third Cod War was mostly just more of the same. Britain deployed like 30 frigates, Iceland deployed like 6 boats, and they messed around in the ocean for a while. This time, though, both sides were feeling bold, and there were 52 reported incidents of ramming. You know, like, the ancient Greeks. Outdated as it was, a few ships were almost sunk, and the Royal Navy had to spend millions of pounds on repairs. Quick, now it's time to play Guess How the War Ended.
I would say they go to the US again, threaten to leave the NATO. The US comes to Great Britain, says accept the new border, and this one for good, because then we will make rules and regulations about how far the international waters of a country, the exclusive zone of a country can go, which, spoiler alert, then leads to both Iceland, not both, but Iceland, Ireland and Great Britain fight over a small rock in the waters, because if it counts as an island, this would expand the exclusion zone of Great Britain. But it is only a rock, so it wouldn't. But I will put a picture of and the short description of the rock and the conflict right here. So let's just wait some more seconds, because in the last 2 videos I learned I can't start the video too soon, because when I have to say a lot in the info text box, then clusterfuck. So let's, yeah, I think that was enough.
Millions of pounds on repairs. Quick, now it's time to play Guess How the War Ended. If you guess correctly, you'll get a pat on the back and a visit from the ghost of Fidel Castro. Alrighty, let's start. The war ended when A. Iceland sent an army of trolls to attack London. B. Britain launched a nuclear strike on Reykjavik. C. All the cod killed themselves in a mass protest. Or D. Iceland just threatened to withdraw from NATO again.
I would love answer C. All the cod killed themselves in a mass protest. I actually have never heard someone pronounce it. What did he say? Reykjavik or something like that. I only know it as Reykjavik, which might be wrong as well, but hey.
Or D. Iceland just
but I take
threatened
D.
to withdraw from NATO again. As much as I hate to say it, the correct answer is D, because duh! There's not another war or anything. We're just all out of a job and have to sell our businesses and restart our lives in the South. No biggie.
Yeah. So 3 victories for Iceland due to US aid. For you Britons out there, that's how it feels. Oh no, that's a very bad joke. But yeah, as I said, that would lead to actual regulations put in place. And I think the exclusion zone of every country in the world by international law right now is 250 miles or 200 miles of the shores, and which also leads again to debates and conflicts, because what exactly counts as shores, because for example Germany's and Denmark's North Sea coasts are famous for their what, and I think it's what in English as well. And so when the tide goes back, what's the opposite of tide? I only ever learn of tide, but when the water gets low, then it's pretty much land. So from the border of that, what, 200 miles, or from the border of the shores by when tides, is only one example. And of course these rocks in the seas, overlapping zones with, for example, in the Japanese Sea with Japan, China, Taiwan, and I think Indonesia, all overlapping somehow, and all fighting for their rights there. And then Japan has 2 rocks which they spend 600 billion or million US dollars on to make them count as islands and build habitats on them, stuff like that, just to have more grounds to fish. I for once hate fish. I don't like it. I don't eat it. It smells bad and it tastes bad. I'm happy with no fish whatsoever. So I'm not that involved. But yeah, that was the video. A short video today. We will see us again with the next video, which will be much wished by you. Ancient Rome in 20 minutes. I will do it. I will do it. I will. It will be a blamage for me, but I will do it. And I will do it in the next video. So stay tuned for that. In the meantime, watch my other videos. And if you like, then consider to subscribe. And of course, leave a like on the video. If you don't like, please leave a dislike and tell me why. Tell me in the comments what do you think of this video, or what do you want to see in the future. And until then, I wish you a happy day and a good night. And bye-bye.